Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Dave Shondell joins us, friend of the show and friend of here Purdue. Purdue want to be around winning teams. Coach Dave Shondell has delivered that 22 years. Is that right?
Now, this will be the 22nd season.
Yeah, unbelievable. And of course, the Boilermakers off to a good start, 6-0, ranked 7th nationally. It's never easy, though, as you guys hit the road. When this airs, you will be playing in Dallas at an SMU Classic. But talk about that, just the fact that the challenges that face your team this weekend when you play Houston tonight, but then you may play Kansas, or you'll play either Kansas or SMU as well. It's no rest for the weary for you in this whole situation.
Yeah, the schedule's been pretty tough already. We've played probably 5 top 50 teams, which may not seem a lot to some, but it might to others. But it's been pretty competitive. And we've done all right. We've lost just a couple of sets out of those 6 matches. So we're 6-0, clearly 18-2 in sets played, or 18-3, something along those lines. And we haven't been great yet. We have not played at a level that I think I'm excited about. I thought against UC Davis, our 3rd match of the season here at home, was our best match that we've played. We've been better in practice than we have been in matches so far, just trying to get some things worked out. But obviously our match with Houston today, really good team. They've been to the Sweet 16 in the round of 32 the last couple of seasons. And we play them in Texas at Dallas, so will not be their home floor. But this is an event we started a couple of years ago with these 4 teams, and it rotates sites. It was at our place last year, at SMU this year, at Kentucky next year, and then we'll finish up at Houston. So, but it's kind of a tournament format, as you've already mentioned. You know, we're going to play Houston. The host team determines what the schedule is. So SMU decided they wanted to play Kentucky. That leaves us playing Houston, and then the winners and losers will play on Saturday.
How does that? I was interested because I'm listening and I enjoy your podcast with Corey Palm as well, and talking about how that works, because this is like you said, a true tournament. Where your tournament last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, you played everybody in the tournament. So how does that is the call of SMU to do it this way, or how?
No, it's the format's been determined. We decided a couple of years ago we wanted to have this kind of a format, but then we leave it up to the host school as to who's going to play who on that first night. And so if like I'm not sure what SMU wanted to do, but they decided to play a pretty good team right away in Kentucky. And they left us to play Houston. But there's not a dog in the fight, really. There's a lot of good teams. And then after that weekend, this weekend we go to
Kansas, right?
Kansas, and we play 2 teams that will probably be in the top 10 in Kansas and Creighton. Creighton lost a tough 5-setter earlier this week at Nebraska. I think it was 15-10 or 15-11 in the 5th. Kansas is undefeated as of right now. So, and then we'll also play Tulsa, who's doing okay this year, but they certainly aren't quite as highly touted as what Kansas and Creighton are. We've had some good matches with both those 2 teams over the last 3 or 4 seasons.
You look at the psyche and your seasons. You've done this a long time and done it well. When you look at trying, and you had a very good season last year. You've talked about this year. You've got Hudson and Chacoin and many, and Raven Colvin. You've got a nucleus that can take you anywhere. But how has that been in terms of just not just getting their attention, but making sure that this is they can, and you've already mentioned they're not maybe at the level that you need them to be yet, but you got great kids, but you want to get them to the greatest level. How has that been a challenge for you as a coach looking at this year?
Well, I think the bar is pretty high this year, and maybe we've put that ourselves, put it at that particular level ourselves. But it's an everyday situation. I mean, I watched tape last night, after watching our practice. I went out and recruited down in Indianapolis, and then I got home last night and, watched our practice again and took a plethora of notes that I'll be sharing, before practice today. It might even show some of those things in practice, on tape today before practice. So it's constantly trying to encourage and motivate and letting people know that in some cases you're doing great. had a great practice. You're doing this really, really well. In other situations, this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
This isn't going to get us where we want to go. And like I mentioned, we played 6 matches. 5 of them I don't think have been to the level that we can play at. But I think that's also, from a coaching standpoint, understandable. It's the first 2 weekends of the season, despite having a fairly experienced team back, but still young, if that makes sense. Experienced, but still very young in terms of how long these guys have been playing the game.
Are they good listeners? In other words, I mean, as you've coached a long time, seen a number of kids, over the years, have you found this group to be, are they good at constructive criticism? How is that dynamic work with you and your staff and trying to communicate?
Yeah, I think they're good, but you want competitive, tough athletes, and sometimes competitive, tough athletes don't want to hear it. From the coach all the time. They feel like they can figure it out on their own, or that they're doing fine, or they're going to be okay during the match. But my mistake would be agreeing to that philosophy.
Yeah.
You'll get it figured out, and we'll just let you do your own thing. And so I mentioned that I think practice on Monday, we had come back from the tournament in Utah, and I lowered the boom a little bit on Monday before practice. And I just said, we're not running our own program here.
Yeah.
One of the things I mentioned was, for years, our T-shirts in practice and in matches have been tucked in.
Yeah.
But the world changes, the world's really changing out there. And I even mentioned, I said, I told the team, I said, I go watch every basketball game. The minute somebody comes out of the game, they're pulling their T-shirt out. Okay. That's the first thing they do. And I don't know why, but, I guess for comfort. But I told him, I said, you guys make the decision. This is your team. I said, but we got a tradition here where little things matter. And when you get down to the 5th set of a tight match, don't you want to be able to count on each other and know that they're going to be in the position that you want them to be to make a play? I said, that kind of goes along with having your T-shirt tucked in. If you want to be sloppy, maybe you need to go to a different program.
Yeah. Love it. I'd like to have been there to hear that. I'm not laughing, but I'm just saying that you're good at that, and I think I was
pleased that we went out to practice after being in our video room, that all the T-shirts were tucked in. So at least for a day we're living that particular program.
Well, and you have to deal with, and again, because the kids you've recruited, you have the highest level of student athlete. I mean, they're great.
We've got amazing people in our program. We got people
that can make it
doctors
tougher
and professors and lawyers and dentists and everything else. We got unbelievable people. Yeah. But that doesn't. But again, I can sit here and just ride that out, and say, okay, I trust you guys and everything's fine. Or we can be 6-0 and still say we got to do better. Yeah. And I think that's our situation. When you look at who we have coming up, not just these next 3 non-conference events before the Big Ten starts, but the Big Ten starts, we have Penn State, who's ranked 3rd at home, and then we go to Minnesota, who's 20 on the road that first week. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how they're introducing us to the Big Ten this season.
Yeah, that's right. Next home match. That's your next home match, September 25th versus Penn State. Not many tickets available as well, as that's been a consistent issue. Zero would be right. Yeah. All right, I want to talk about that, and you get, every time I interview you, we talk about the gauntlet that is the Big Ten. Of course, Penn State ranked 3rd, like you said. Wisconsin actually dropped to 8th, 2-3. You know darn well the Badgers are going to be good by the time they come to Mackey Arena, I think on the 26th. But talk about just the landscape of the Big Ten. And there's always landmines of something you don't expect, or somebody that on paper shouldn't be able to beat you guys. This is such a great league. And now they're you only have 17 other opponents. Really going to be an interesting year again in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think half the Big Ten is playing really tough schedules.
Yeah.
And the other half are probably doing what they need to do to make sure that they're getting prepared week after week and getting better week after week, and not trying to bite off more than they can chew, which is good for us from an RPI standpoint. We need people to win regardless of where they are. But you mentioned Wisconsin, they've gone 2-3, but I think everybody they've played, with the exception last night of playing Milwaukee, so maybe they're 3-3 now.
Yeah.
Everybody's been really, really good. And they had some injuries during the offseason and were a little slow getting people back. And now I think he has everybody back. So I think that, I still think Wisconsin's a top 4 team in the country. I really, really do. And I think Nebraska is up there as well. Penn State's knocking on the door. But Penn State's undefeated right now, so they've climbed really quickly. They got a big win over Louisville, and then also a big win at Kentucky. So those are really nice wins. Well, I guess one was at home. They beat Louisville at home, went to Kentucky and beat them as they opened up the new Memorial Coliseum there at Kentucky. They did a great job of renovating that place. Beautiful facility for women's basketball, volleyball, and I think gymnastics in there. So Craig Skinner, former Ball State guy, is a good friend of mine. So he's got one of the best facilities in the country.
No, your home court advantage is as good as anybody at Beeland Court, but also obviously Mackey Arena will be. I think it's been 8. That's hard to believe. It's been 8 years since you played there. I believe that's correct. And you've got a couple big matches. People assume, there's 14,000 X number of tickets, a lot of tickets left. But talk about, there aren't a lot of tickets left. I think there still are some for the matches. But talk about that and that decision. You've got a big match against Indiana, but you got Wisconsin in there as well to take it to Mackey. Is it just a case you want to continue to grow this game? I assume that's a big part of it.
Well, we love playing at Holloway Gym. It's our gym. It's where we practice every day. We've had really good success. We've had some incredible moments in there. However, this sport is blowing up.
Yeah.
And you'd have to not be paying attention to not know that. Okay. But a guy like yourself who's involved in sports knows that this game is blowing up like nobody's business. And we can get big crowds for our sport. And, when we made the ask to go into Mackey and play some matches, they came back and suggested one initially. And because there were some logistical issues and they came to me, Alan, and said, and I say they, because it wasn't Mike Bobinski, it was some of Mike's staff. And they said, well, we've got to get 3,500 people in there or we're not going to make that even. And I said, or break even. And I said, I don't think we got to worry about that, guys. I said, I just have a feeling that people like our team. And, Purdue is going to support what we're doing here. And so those tickets went on sale while we were at the Big Ten media days. And I think in 2 days, we had sold about 90% of the gym. Okay. And some of them were already sold because they were season tickets from Holloway that were just going to be transferred over there, obviously. But that was, a couple thousand. But those tickets went fast. We have not spent a dime on marketing yet. And last I heard from the people is we have less than 1,000 tickets for both those matches. So we're trying to get, the 14.6 or 14.8, whatever it is. So that means we've sold about, 13.8.
Yeah.
Okay. And, but we want to sell the thing out. If we get to 14.8, we can break the record for a Big Ten match. Okay. For total attendance. So that's kind of what the goal is.
October 19th, Indiana. That's the night the football plays that weekend, Friday night against Oregon. So it's a classic Purdue sports weekend if you want to do that, but you better act quickly. And of course, Wisconsin on the 26th, that is a bye weekend for football. Not that matters, but I think the men may be playing an exhibition game at Creighton, but the men's basketball. That, in terms of that, what Nebraska did at its football stadium, again, an example of where this sport is going, and et cetera. And that ever a dream of playing in Ross-Ade Stadium? And if so, how do those? I even know in Nebraska, how do they control?
Well, they've got to bring in a portable setup, a stage of sorts, and then they put that their floor, that Terraflex floor, on top of that. And but they did a great job. And what you're talking about, in case people don't know, is they had over 100,000, I think, at Memorial Stadium in Nebraska for a match between Nebraska and Omaha. And it was an unbelievable thing, the biggest crowd for a women's sporting event in the world. And so it was volleyball, which was a big thing. Okay. What we're trying to do is just give our athletes an opportunity to play in that kind of an environment.
Yeah.
It helps recruiting. When you're trying to recruit against Nebraska and Wisconsin and Minnesota, who are playing in venues, designed for their sport, that hold anywhere from 6,000 to 9,000 people. And those same recruits come to your facility, and it's a great place to play. Don't get me wrong, but it holds 2,450. It's a different feel. And so I think that right now I want to be able to provide both those looks. I want to provide the look at Holloway and also Mackey. So if this goes well, and I think it's shown that it probably will attendance-wise.
Yep.
It's something that we can maybe build on if logistically it can work out.
Yeah, one step at a time, but it's going to be a big step in Mackey Arena. All right, players play. You've got some great ones. 3 that come to mind that obviously are maybe your headliners with Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine, and of course Raven Colvin. Talk about not only their development, but also some of the young women that are making an impact that maybe be surprising some folks that haven't been able to watch you guys on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, one of our biggest goals this season and things we've totally emphasized every day is making sure that those players besides the 3-headed Hydra you're speaking of, the Raven, Eva, Chloe, that everybody kind of knows about. They were All-Americans a year ago, and they're having great starts to really good seasons, okay? But the rest of that group has to get better. Yeah. They're the ones that are going to make the difference, And so what's been exciting for me is that that's exactly what we've seen. Lourdes Myers, Elizabeth Carr, Kenna Woolard, Taylor Anderson, Allie Horning, Ryan McAleer. You just go right down the list. Those players are making tremendous progress. Kenna Woolard's hitting over 350 as our right side player. And we had a couple of injuries during the offseason that really thinned our roster badly. But as long as we're healthy, I think we're going to put a really good lineup on the floor. Raven Colvin is playing out of her mind right now. She's connecting with our setter better than she has in a couple of seasons. She's one of the best blockers in the country. She's becoming a great leader for this team. Eva Hudson, I've said I think is one of the 5 best players in the country. Every night in the gym she is. There have been a couple of matches where for whatever reason, she hasn't gotten it going like I know she will all the time. But there's also a big block in front of Eva all the time. That's one of the things when you're a marked player, it's kind of like Sarah Franklin from Wisconsin. People are going to be in front of her a lot. So it's not as easy as it sounds. And then Chloe is kind of a unique athlete in the fact that she's not super tall. She's 5'10", but jumps well, hits the ball really hard, makes lots of plays. But those are 3 amazing players to start with, okay? And they come in every day and they give us all they got. And like I keep telling you, we've been better in practice than we have been in matches. I watch these practices over and over again, and then I watch our matches, and it's all a process of kind of getting used to each other on the floor, and you get into different environments on the road or at home when you're a little nervous or whatever it might be. Expectations might be high. But wow, I think that the potential is really good for this team if we can stay healthy.
Yeah, and that will be always the challenge for coaches. Now, I got to ask you, because you're always you look at the big world of college athletics and where it's all going, the transfer portal world, the NIL world. That makes you don't have much hair left, either do I, and it can make you pull your hair out, so to speak. But talk about how you continue to navigate that. And how that's been for you. We'll start with NIL, but you can go into the portal. And you've kind of used the portal for a couple of key additions. You haven't lost many folks away from that. Not surprising. But what is the state of the union in that world right now for you?
Well, the portal is here to stay. Okay, The transfer portal is going to be a really important component to being successful at the college level. And as you mentioned, we're not great at it because we haven't done a lot of it. Not a lot of people leave Purdue. Yeah. And at least in our program and most of our other programs, they're very loyal. They love it here because the fans are so great. But when one does leave, you've got to go out and find a way to attract some of those tremendous players. We haven't brought in a lot of elite transfers yet. And it's been frustrating a little bit because we thought we're with this team this past year when we went out and went after transfers, we just didn't have much luck. For some reason, they went other places. So we're going to have to figure out how we can, create a little more of a buzz and a little stir. And again, that's why I want to play in Mackey Arena.
Yeah.
What a great, I mean, you and I both go in there for every basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whether it's men or women, and it's an event, it's a show. And we want to make sure that our players and our fans and our recruits can see us in that same environment. But the transfer portal is here to stay. So you better be really good at that. Be good at making sure your players are happy while they're here and that you're taking good care of them, and do a better job than what we have so far at bringing in some transfers. The NIL piece is interesting because next year, 2025, 26, the landscape changes, where NIL will not function the way that it is right now.
Yeah.
That will all have to go through the school. It'll have to be more legitimate NIL. We're not going to be writing checks for $100,000 to a football, basketball, whatever it might be, without them doing the proper amount of work or service for that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Instead, you're going to have what's called revenue sharing. And beginning that year, the mark is at $22 million that Division I schools will be allowed, that's the cap, allowed to pay players. Okay. Now that's all players that they decide are, I guess, worthy of getting that money. And for volleyball, we don't know what that means. Okay. I mean, the Big Ten has said, and Mike Babinski made it clear when we met with him, that the Big Ten is going to be a leader in making this gender equity, making this Title IX compliant, and they want to be involved in that. But still, football is making the lion's share of the money. Okay. When you look at the revenue that's coming around football. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going to get, plenty of what they deserve, but the rest is still yet to be determined. So that's going to change. I mean, the NIL is not going to be like it has been. It will still be there, but also will this revenue sharing that will be at 22 million. The following year, it goes to 24 million. Then it goes to 27 million. And then they look again at how much money has come in through these TV deals and everything else, and it will be higher than that. And so how is Ball State, Indiana State, Valparaiso, Butler, how are those schools going to be able to keep up with these Power 4 or Autonomy 4 conferences? I don't know.
Yeah. Going to be an interesting thing. We could talk about that for hours, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch that evolve. You're going to have to be nimble. You already are. You've done it long enough to be able to do that. Well, I wish you safe travels. By the time this airs, you're already at your location in Dallas. Of course, Purdue and Houston tonight. Tomorrow, the Boilermakers will take on either SMU or I should say. Kansas as well, and did I mess that up? It's not SMU or Kentucky.
This weekend,
number
we're
10.
at Kansas this weekend.
Also, to make sure too, and if you want good conversation, and Dave is never short on saying what he thinks, and it makes for good. And Corey Palm does a great job. Check out Dig City, the podcast. I believe I don't know when you drop that every week. It's
usually on Thursday.
Thursdays, good.
Hopefully, our amazing Rachel Coe can get that produced and put out on a Thursday, so it goes right into the weekend. I'll be speaking with Corey later today, so she'll have to really spin some wheels to make that happen. But I appreciate you, Alan, what you do for Purdue. I appreciate our fans, and I think that right now the only seats available for those Mackey events are the Upper Bowl, and some people have been stubborn, like that's a bad seat. You've been
not a bad seat.
There's not a bad seat in the place. And these two matches, I think, will be events. They'll be the kind of things you want to be able to say, I was there when Purdue sold out Mackey Arena for volleyball against Indiana, and the same thing with Wisconsin. And that Wisconsin match will be the first match ever, college volleyball match ever on NBC.
On NBC. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I think that's something to be proud of as well for our athletes.
All right. I do want one thing. I don't know if it'll work out. Your schedule is busy. Nothing better than Dave Shondell doing Shout in Ross-Age Stadium. Still, if you can go find it, it's still out there in the viral world. But Ryan Walters and company could always use a little bit of infusion of energy after the third quarter.
Big weekend, big Saturday for Walters and company with the.
You'll have to be watching from afar. I could see you making a cameo appearance on that Friday, October 18th, right before your match against Indiana. That might be perfect. I don't want to tell Chris Pelliot and those guys what to do.
No,
they'll figure it out. But
they don't like that very well. Yeah.
But it'll be a lot of fun to watch that. So safe travels to you guys. Good luck this weekend and throughout the season. We always appreciate your time.
Thanks, Alan.
We'll look forward to more from the Boilermakers as you go through the 2024 season.
All right.
All right. We'll be
Enjoy
back.
your weekend.
Segment 3, Jim Everett will join us. We'll talk a little Purdue Notre Dame football. 40 years since Jim Everett led Purdue to a win over the Fighting Irish in the Hoosier Dome. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's hard to believe, but we'll have some fun doing that. So stay tuned. We'll see you in a couple of minutes on
Great quarterback, great Boilermaker.
No doubt.